Hey guys, Ric Callahan here. I'm glad that you're joining me for the series, Leading Your Family Well. And this is session number 6. I'm calling this the 5 C's of Parenting. I want to start with an opening story I want to read to you, so listen closely. A mother stood in the kitchen after a long day. Her toddler was crying because his sandwich had been cut wrong. Not because it tasted bad, not because it was burned, but because triangles were apparently really offensive that day. Her older daughter at the same time was dramatically announcing that homework was ruining her life. The baby was crying, the dog was barking at absolutely nothing, and someone had spilled apple juice all over the floor for the 3rd time in the last hour. Well, the mother felt overwhelmed, and she wanted to yell. She wanted to hide in the pantry and eat a whole bag of Doritos. She briefly considered whether it was legal to fake her own disappearance, but instead she paused, and she knelt beside her son and calmly said, "I know you're upset. Dinner is first, and then cookies come later." Now, the crying didn't stop immediately because toddlers, they're pretty committed to the process. But something important happened. That child learned that emotions can be managed without chaos. And he learned that love can still be firmed. And he learned security comes from steady parents, not perfect ones. So today we're going to share 5 C's of godly parenting. So I think we can all agree that parenting is one of the greatest blessings in life, but also one of the strangest. Before kids, you used to judge parents in restaurants. I know that you did. Don't say that you didn't. And after kids, though, you leave restaurants just apologizing to strangers while carrying a screaming child out like a sack of taters. Nobody's fully prepared for parenting. You'll discover things like tiny humans can survive on one chicken nugget and pure stubbornness, and that toddlers can fight sleep like it's a criminal offense. And yet, despite the chaos, parenting matters deeply. We are shaping their hearts, their habits, their character, and emotional health. Now, here are the 5 C's. I'm going to share them with you, and we'll come back and talk about each one. So if you've got something to write with, take these notes. Number 1 is consistency. Number 2 is calm. Number 3 is consequences. Number 4, compassion and connection. And number 5 is care, choices, and coaching. Now you may say, Rick, you said there were 5 C's. That's a few more than 5, but hey, just stay with me. So let's look first one, consistency. So children grow best in predictable environments. Consistency means following through, keeping routines, maintaining boundaries, and responding predictably. Children feel safe when life is stable. Now, let's be honest. Kids are excellent lawyers. I grew up with one in my home, and they can definitely argue their case. They know every loophole, they know every exception, and every time dad says yes after mom said no. A child will say, "But last Tuesday, you let me stay up late." And somehow they remember this with greater accuracy than they do their math homework. Consistency matters because children test boundaries to discover whether those boundaries are real. Now let's look at a passage of Scripture. You may have heard this in the past. It's from Matthew 5:37, and it says, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no." And parents, you need to be on the same page when it comes to your yeses and knows. You know, if you threaten to turn the car around sometimes, you need to turn the car around. You need to be willing to turn around and head back home. You need to mean what you say. So number 2 is the word calm. And parents set the emotional temperature of the home through calm. Now, children borrow emotional regulation from adults, which means that if we lose our minds every day, they may assume that that is normal behavior. Calm parenting does not mean your children never frustrate you. Sometimes parenting feels like, well, please stop kicking your brother, or why is there peanut butter on the wall, or who put the pajamas on the dog? And somehow these become real conversations. But calm parenting means responding instead of exploding. Passage of scripture that I've chosen for calm is this one from Proverbs 15:1. It says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath." Here's an important truth to remember about this. A child's tantrum should not create a matching adult tantrum. Let's think about that. And because 2 people kicking and screaming at the same time, that doesn't solve anything. So we've got consistency and we've got calm. And then we also have number 3, which is consequences. Discipline should teach, not merely punish. Consequences help children connect choices with outcomes. Remember last week I talked about having some scripts that maybe you talk about with your spouse, ways that you can respond to certain situations. Be consistent in those responses. Healthy discipline is predictable. It is logical. It is measurable, and it's instructional. Let's look at those again. Healthy discipline is predictable, logical, measurable, and instructional. Sometimes children act shocked by consequences. I mean, they look absolutely stunned. You say, if you throw that tablet again, you lose it. Then they throw it in slow motion while maintaining eye contact like they're in an action movie. And when the tablet disappears, they respond as though the injustice has just entered the whole world. But consequences teach responsibility. So if you want to lead your family well, you have to set boundaries. You have to set those consequences when they cross them. So the scripture for this area, for this section, is Proverbs 13:24, which says, "Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them." I want you to listen to this parenting truth. Discipline is exhausting because consistency requires energy. But raising undisciplined adults is even more exhausting and unfortunately may last a lifetime. So let's talk about number 4, compassion and connection. Connection gives correction its power. Connection gives correction its power. Now, children are more open to guidance when they feel emotionally connected. As parents, we need to connect before we correct. Say that with me. Connect before we correct. You say, so kids, they don't need a lecture first. They need reassurance first that they are loved. Even adults respond better when they feel understood. Let me give you some practical examples. First of all, you need to have with your kids a daily one-on-one time. You need to make sure that when they're talking, you are listening carefully. You need to laugh together often as a family. And you need to be emotionally available and connected with your child. So listen to this. One day your child thinks you are the smartest person alive. Would you agree? And then they become teenagers. And suddenly you can't even fold their clothes correctly. You need to stay connected anyway. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Ephesians 6:4. Some versions don't say provoke. They say, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Number 5 would be care, choices, and coaching. Parenting is preparing children for adulthood. Our goal is not raising permanent toddlers. We are raising responsible adults. Eventually, we want children who can solve problems, who can make wise decisions, who can handle responsibility, and who can function in society. Coaching means guiding your children instead of controlling them. Let me give you a practical example here. First of all, offering choices, especially as they get older. Teaching responsibility. Encouraging problem solving. I feel that my parents spent their first 2 years teaching me how to walk and talk. And because I talked a lot when I was a teenager, they spent the next 16 years trying to get me to sit down and be quiet. I'm just saying, parenting is messy. Yeah, it's beautiful, it's exhausting, it's sacred, it's confusing, and it's loud. And sometimes all in the last 5 minutes. There will be moments that you feel like an incredible parent. And there will be moments when you want to go hide in your garage and rearrange your tools. But remember this, children do not need perfect parents. They need loving, growing, emotionally healthy parents who keep showing up for them. So the 5 C's remind us of this, that we need to be consistent, we need to stay calm, we need to teach through consequences, we need to build connection, and we need to coach with care. Because every ordinary moment, every bedtime story, every difficult conversation, every correction, every hug is shaping the future of your child. And one day, you may discover that all those small moments mattered far more than you ever realized. We'll see you next time.